Welcome to Between the Brackets. I'm Yaron Koren, and my guest for this episode is Robert Heine, who is the founder and CEO of both Energypedia and Energypedia Consult. So, Robert, welcome to the program.
Yeah, hi, Jaron, welcome.
So, first of all, where are you located?
I'm sitting in Wiesbaden. It's a small town, not a small town, it's a mid-sized town near Frankfurt in Germany.
Oh, okay. Oh. Yeah, I've been to Frankfurt. Yeah, there's an interesting the semantic media wiki or media wiki connection to that with that whole area. Let's start, I guess, with talking about Energypedia, or actually more generally with MediaWiki. How did you first get involved with MediaWiki?
It was in 2000, maybe 6 or 7, when I was still working for a GTZ. It's a German agency doing development cooperation worldwide, and I was responsible for knowledge management and monitoring in a big global program about energy access to rural areas in Africa, etc., etc. And at this time, this big company just offered some file storage, that's all. And my boss told me or asked me if I have another idea how we can organize knowledge management a bit better. And then at this point, I think I was in Bonn. There was a kind of workshop about this upcoming social media thing. And they recommended wikis and blogs, and I checked it out. And then we decided to go for Wiki. But first we tried something with a content management system. I forgot the name, but it was a total disaster. And then we switched to MediaWiki. And since this time, we just explored all these options with MediaWiki. And also, I think Carsten Hoffmeier, a friend of mine, you already know maybe as well.
Definitely, sure.
Yeah, he also recommended the semantic MediaWiki, but at this time, I really don't understood what it's all about, semantic MediaWiki. I really just was happy that I understood what MediaWiki is and how to get it on the server, etc. And this is how it starts. So the first thing was that we built up this prototype of Energypedia, but we not named it at this time Energypedia, and it was like a project wiki. And I think it was at this time 25 projects in 20 different countries were contributing about the experience with solar panels and hydropower things, etc., etc. And it was a quite good experience. The people liked it. They liked the easiness of it to use it. But of course, we had some problems with this what you see is what you get editors at this time.
Right.
But it was fun. And the people appreciate it because the alternative was to create PDF files and store it somewhere, and nobody would find it again.
Right, right. So how many people were involved at that point?
Yeah, we started with a small group like of 20 to 25 people, but I think 6 months later it was 350 or something worldwide.
Wow, okay. They got to it through the wiki. I mean,
yeah, we invited them.
Okay.
And they were more or less all colleagues. So colleagues from the same company, like the company, they have like close to 20,000 people worldwide.
Oh, I see.
In this energy sector and these energy projects in Africa, Latin America, Asia, it was a community about 350, 400 people. And they all joined, but of course, 10% were active, something like this.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask about that. First of all, I'm surprised by your Carsten Hoffmeier connection. Is that just a complete coincidence? I mean, he's one of currently the main people involved in semantic media wiki. Is it just a total coincidence that you both ended up in this world, in this world of
maybe
structured data?
There was in Germany, also organized by the German Wikipedia Foundation, they called it Wiki Days or something. There were some Wiki meetings.
Sure,
there was only a small community in Germany with these Wiki people. And there I met also Carsten Hoffmeier. And when we started with this idea of semantic media wiki, we asked them if he could train us. But then he said that he don't know what to train, but we can ask him any questions, and then we just have like a nice relationship, and we ask him many questions. And even today, we have calls every now and then.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You met through Wikipedia, through the Wiki movement. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering about that. How whether how Energypedia got its start, because it seems to have a big, sort of environmental focus. So I didn't know. I didn't know whether it came from the, the corporate world or from the I guess you could call it the NGO world or something.
Yeah, it's a kind of NGO world, but these German agency is state-owned, so it's not really a non-governmental body. It's a governmental body, but it's working in this development cooperation sector, and it started like as an internal project wiki for a global program about renewable energies.
Yeah. Okay. So then, how did you decide to turn it into a public wiki and rename it and all of that?
Yeah, this was because it was quite known, though the people were talking about this. And at the beginning, as it was an internal project wiki, we not gave access to external people. We just said, okay, only people with a company email address can access to it. And then as the demand was getting higher, we decided, okay, we will have a separate internal workspace, and this we call then the project wiki, and we publish a global Energypedia. And this was 2010. We published it globally, and we named it Energypedia, and we designed a logo, etc., etc. And then we also there were some people from World Bank interested in getting to the content, and yeah, and then it started as a kind of a non-profit project. So it was still within the company, but even at this time, my boss said we should source it out. It should be in kind of a non-profit, an independent body. And then we founded the non-profit organization Energypedia in 2011 or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's when it got its URL, energypedia.info.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's
And
an
then
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, then we had like a small team. But like when I was still in this company in 2010, I had like two interns and two working students and taking care about all these registrations and user emails and support, etc., etc. But it was not really the mandate of our program of the taxpayer money we got. And then my boss said, okay, there is money for it, so we can get grants from World Bank, etc. And then we
Ah,
founded a non-profit organization and hired staff to take care about all this community management thing and wiki gardening and all this stuff.
yeah, okay. And did you get grant money from World Bank, from the World Bank and other
Yeah,
organizations?
a bit. Yeah, we got money from my previous organization. They gave us a grant, and we gave some. I think it was the Siemens Foundation or something like this. And World Bank, we got a little bit of money, but it was enough for the first 2, 3 years.
Yeah, okay, okay. Um, I mean, I guess Energypedia still relies on donations. Is is more money coming in from donations or from, the bigger grants? Or I don't know if you're allowed to talk about the
No,
details.
sure. No donation, there's hardly nothing because we also had the idea of getting donations because I think Wikipedia in Germany gets like 12 million donations each
Sure,
year.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we thought Energypedia is like the same, it's like Wikipedia, but we get like donations, 500 euros a year, that's it, from private people. But grants we still get, and but like 50% of our money comes from the consulting subsidiary company. So that we founded the consult company to make money, and the profits are all going to the non-profit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and well, I definitely want to talk about the consulting stuff. Um, but staying on the topic of Energypedia, first of all, um, well, I just want to briefly to note the URL energypedia.info seems like an early case of what's it called, the domain hack, not quite a hack, but something other than .com and .org. It's pretty neat. I didn't know .info was around back then, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think the other URLs were already taken or something. I'm not. I think for .org you have to apply somehow, and then we just took the info. It was free and cheap, and we
Yeah,
just took it.
yeah, no, it's very nice. It fits in, of course. Um, could you explain what Energypedia is? I mean, you sort of explained it, but in a more complete way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the same like Wikipedia, but the content is really more practical knowledge. So it's really it's not the encyclopedia. It's more like people who have built up a biogas plant in Bolivia. They can write down what they experienced and what was working, what was not working, or if I don't know if having a hydropower plant in Rwanda, is it feasible? Are the environment on the legal conditions allowing it? Are there any feed-in tariffs, etc., etc.? So they all these experts. They doing projects worldwide or doing projects in the name of some organizations. They can write down their practical experience, and this was the idea, that we give some basics about the technology, like what is hydropower, but we then sometimes also link to Wikipedia because there are some articles already. But when it comes to micro hydropower or some smaller gadgets, then it's on Wikipedia sometimes not relevant and they delete it. And all this very specific stuff is on Energypedia. And like
Yeah.
the first
Yeah.
stories we had was that sometimes it was also the same person. Like we had some energy consultant and they built a biogas plant in Bolivia and 1 year later in Rwanda. And then they explained what is the difference between Bolivia and Rwanda, what works in Rwanda, what works in Bolivia, and this kind of articles we have on Energypedia.
Yeah, okay. So it is the real goal, you know, for all the billions of people in the third world or whatever it's called these days, who don't yet have a, you know, a reliable power system for them to, you know, skip fossil fuels and move directly onto the alternative energy sources, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's about knowledge exchange between South and North, or how you want to call it. And it's, of course, also about not reinventing the wheel, because this donor money is sometimes very stupid. And then, I don't know, the US guys coming in and building something, then the Germans come in, then the Dutch guys, then I don't know, the Chinese, and they do all the same, they do the same mistakes. So it's also about transparency, learning from each other, and do not repeat too many times the same mistakes is also the intention.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's not just about sharing general knowledge, it's also about project management and specific projects so people are aware of what's going on.
Yeah. So if people plan a project, I don't know, in Mozambique, they can read about the Mozambique energy situation. They can read about the legal framework, if it's allowed as a private company to generate energy and to sell it to the government or to sell it to private entities. And all this knowledge is on Energypedia.
Yeah, cool. Are you aware of specific cases where it's come in handy and, you know, prevented waste or anything else?
There are some anecdotes. So there are some projects, or at least when we have our newsletter and we ask them, how do you use Energypedia? Is there anything you want to share with us? Any success stories? There's not so much coming back, but of course there are people saying that they learned that this kind of, I don't know, solar lantern was not good tested in the neighbor countries, so we avoided to I don't know, to buy tons of them from China. So this
Yeah,
kind of
okay.
stories we have here.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. This is just a general question. What energy source do you think is the most are you most excited about for the future? I mean, do you think is the most practical in terms of replacing fossil fuels and all that? It's a big question, of
I
course.
think it will be a mixture. I think
Yeah.
that, of course, solar and wind is quite attractive, even still in Africa. You know, there was this, it called desert tech. It was an idea that you just need, I don't know, I don't know, a very, very small area in Morocco, where there's enough sun to generate the energy for the whole world. So, and if you do this kind of calculation, it sounds very attractive. But of course, nobody wants to rely on this small piece of land in Morocco, so they don't go for it. But in Africa, of course, solar power is very attractive. You have a lot of sun, a lot
Yeah.
of heat, and but it's more about, not about the technology. It's more about if it's like still centralized or decentralized. And in many countries, it's still centralized. So there is a monopoly on the government to produce energy, and then they distribute it to all the villages. And these distribution lines, they're very, very costly. And if people in the village need something to to charge their mobiles, etc., they just need small solar panels, and they are getting cheaper every day. So this kind of approach, and this kind of smart approach where villages share one mini grid, so they have a grid but only in the village, and they have maybe a diesel generator for the night, and they have some solar panels, and maybe if there's a river next to, they have a hydropower plant, and then it's enough energy for the village. And
Yeah.
then the people can share the energy. They can they also this everything is called smart nowadays, but they have this smart metering that they can maybe like pay. If they have some money, they can pay a little bit, and they get some energy to charge the mobile. But if they don't need it anymore, they don't pay, like prepaid systems. And there are some very good solutions out there.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And that seems to work better than a national grid or international setups, that kind of thing.
In many cases, it works better, but of course, when it comes to productive use of energy, so if you really want to run big machines, you need high voltage, you need a lot of energy, and with small solar systems, you cannot have this energy. So then, of course, you have to check how big the system must be to also generate productive use, to generate some machines and small shops, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, cool. So Energypedia itself, what are the statistics like as far as usage? If you
Usage
remember
is,
off the top of your
yeah,
head.
yeah. We have round about 100,000 unique visitors each month.
Wow.
And like right now we have, I think, 10,000, 11,000 registered users, but a lot of them are not active. But we
Yeah.
get
Okay.
every week, I don't know, a dozen new registrations and one or two new articles each week. And the community, after now 10 years, is quite active. So we have like every day a lot of changes in our system, and it's working.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. Do you still contribute?
Me personal, not no.
Yeah. Okay.
um,
Yeah, it's been a while.
so no, it's I think, yeah, when I founded the consult in 2012, 13, I was really focusing on this, and I was really handing it over to other people. So I'm still officially the CEO of Energypedia, but the work is done by others, by my colleagues.
Yeah. Okay. Um, uh, how many people are actually paid employees of Energypedia, if anyone?
In the nonprofit, we have like 2.5 permanent
Yeah.
staff
Yeah. Yeah.
plus a working student and no intern right now. And yeah, in consult we have some other stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's fantastic. It's not Wikipedia, obviously, but I mean, compared to a lot of wikis and other people trying to produce this kind of nonprofit information, that's very impressive, I think. Um, uh, so yeah, let's talk about Energypedia Consult. It seems like a good time. You mentioned you started it a few years later.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, what was the goal behind that just basically as a way to fund Energypedia?
No, it was really demand driven. So when we started with the Energypedia nonprofit and energypedia.info, we from time to time we got some requests from others that said, yeah, it really looks nice. Could you do the same for us for the health sector or for the
Ah,
education sector? And then we said, okay, no time. We're running our own platform. But then as this demand was really going up, and we said, okay, of course, if you pay for it, we can do it. And then we got some contracts, and then our accountant said, okay, we should not take too many contracts because we are a non-profit company, and for tax reason we can lose the status as a non-profit company if we do too many commercial contracting things. And then we founded the Energypedia Consult just to take all these assignments, all these more commercial assignments. And then we set up platforms for others. So we set up wikis for others, and but then it was clear, because also I was working in the area of monitoring and evaluation as well. And for all these non-profit projects, all these development cooperation projects, knowledge management is important, but it's nice to have. but they have to do reporting. So every year they have to write and report to the donors, etc., and they have to fill out this kind of log frames and indicator sets, etc. And then we checked, and this was when we discovered Semantic Media Wiki. We checked that we need it more structured. We need like databases.
Okay.
And then we installed this Semantic Media Wiki, and we built this kind of web-based monitoring system where people can enter data in a form. They can enter data on indicator sheets, on outputs, outcome sheets. This is the language of this monitoring area. And then this was quite popular because this was really people were looking for. So because they have to do this monitoring, they have to do this verifying or how it's called,
auditing,
proving results.
yeah.
No, they have to prove some results because they get donor money to save the world, and now they have to prove it. So they have to prove that they build mini grids or they build solar panels, and how many kilowatt hours they produced, and therefore they need this kind of monitoring. And we developed, based on Wikipedia, we developed this Webmo, like a software for monitoring to enter more structured data.
Yeah. But what? Okay. Yeah, I saw Webmo. I didn't know what it stood for. That's interesting. But Webmo ultimately is MediaWiki plus a set of extensions.
Yeah.
And then are there built-in data structures in with that also? Like anybody who installs Webmo, you also give them, a set of templates and forms and everything?
No, it's a software as a service, so it's just a cloud solution.
Okay. Well, yeah, fine. Anyone, fine. So not that they install it, but anyone who gets a wiki on this wiki farm or whatever it is, however you describe it, are they also getting data structures, or do you recommend certain templates and forms, or it's, people just start from scratch using the
No, it's
software?
like ready-made. So they get a ready-made Webmo installed. So we install it. They can have a kind of subscription, and all these templates and forms and how they are working together. Like this kind of, we have a template for an indicator, template for an activity, template for an outcome, template for a project sheet, etc. And so we really designed this software based on all these templates. And this is like, from a user perspective, it's just like all the other softwares. They just use it and they create their project. They enter the project name and the donor name and the budget they get. And then they click on a button to create a form or a template to add an indicator to the outcome level. And they send, and we have different indicator types where they can have like they can enter just quantitative data. So we achieved 50% right now. And then there are some nice looking bar charts and pie charts, etc. This is something we developed like a software developer. And this is what we are selling as a service.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that's really the way forward, the path of the future for a lot of MediaWiki consulting. It's what I want to get into also, so that people don't even necessarily need to know that it's MediaWiki running.
Exactly.
Or, I mean, they'll probably know it's a wiki because you can see the page history, but beyond that, they don't.
Yeah, even this, for people like us, we would definitely recognize it immediately that it's a wiki. But for most of our users, we have like 60 or 70 webmos running. Minimum half of them, they're not aware of wikis at all.
Right.
They just use it for monitoring.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. There's a within MediaWiki Consulting, there's a big spectrum of, how much do you stress MediaWiki or wikis from the, I mean, on one end, there's people who say we just do MediaWiki Consulting, and my company WikiWorks is basically in that group. And then on the other hand, there are people who don't use the word wiki or MediaWiki at all. I think I mean, not to say that you hide it per se, but I think in your marketing, you just say, the software that powers Wikipedia or something. You don't get into any more details than that.
Yeah. No, in Webmo, there's also a wiki feature. So we try to explain our clients that wiki is very, very strong software and you can do a lot with them, but they like, for 80–90%, they just use it for this monitoring. But we have in the menu on the left-hand side also an icon called Wiki, and then on this Wiki page, it's like a category page with a field where they can enter some names to create pages a bit more easily. Okay. And then we try to convince them to just create some lists, some brainstorming, some structured tables or something like this, and they sometimes they use it, but sometimes they just use it for monitoring.
Okay, I get it. I get it. Yeah. So from that sense, I guess from a marketing perspective, it really doesn't matter whether you say wiki or not. It's just people just don't really care
But
either
Wikipedia
way.
has a good image, so
Well,
we
okay.
like to use Wikipedia because it's open source. It's a good image. It's not like not Microsoft, you know. It's the opposite. So we always say, okay, we're not Microsoft. We're Wikipedia. We are more open source and transparent, and it's all on our servers and GDPR conform data privacy policy, etc., etc. So this is yeah, you
Yeah.
get points if you mention this.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. I guess it fits in with the name of the consulting company too. Energypedia sort of hints at the fact that it's, sort of like Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Sure. It makes total sense. The fact that you mentioned GDPR is interesting. Obviously, that's a big deal for anyone in Europe. Um, is it- um, is Webmo GDPR compliant? I mean, is that something you had to build in, or is just the fact that that it's a wiki and all of that, so you have all this data being stored, is is enough to ensure compliance?
Yeah, it's enough. So
Okay.
for our clients, it's enough that we have like our server physically in Germany, and we have all this paperwork done with our server maintenance and server provider, and that's enough. So they just care about the location of the servers, more or less.
Yeah. When you talked about proving that people organizations proving that they're doing what they claim to do, there's a whole world out there of certification and ISO compliance and all of that data, quality management, all that kind of stuff. Is that a factor in any of this? Is
No,
Okay.
no, we thought about because to have a monitoring system, that means to have a system that really proves that you don't waste money, that you really invest money in good things that work, and that people, I don't know, after some trainings have better jobs or get better payment, or that you create jobs in this country. Um, Therefore, you need a good monitoring system. But in this area, there is no certification. It would be a nice business, but therefore we are too small. So this ISO quality management things, sometimes they do it, but maybe they do it just because the donor wants them to do it because it stands for quality. But when it comes to monitoring, it's still a very yeah, new market, this monitoring things. So there are many consultants for monitoring, but there's not so much monitoring software out there. Not for this
Right.
sector. There's like for server monitoring, etc. There's
Well,
software out
okay.
there,
Yeah.
but for not for NGO projects. But right now, I think worldwide there may be 10 providers for monitoring software, and there's still not a standard and nothing to certify. And so but if we're growing, then we thought about that Webmo, or that projects who are using a Webmo, this stands for some kind of quality, and that Webmo could also sell maybe certificates or maybe some badges to people that they use it. And we also have this experience that some NGOs in Germany, they also use Webmo when they plan a project. So then when they're still in the planning phase, and then if they invite donors to the platform to show them that they are transparent, that they're professional, then they get good feedback, because then the donor can see on this platform the project, all the indicators, the objectives, etc., etc., and then they trust this organization. Then some of our clients give us this kind of feedback that it really helps also to acquire new projects and to convince donors to give money if you have a professional monitoring system running.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. So yeah, as far as monitoring, what does that actually mean? Is it all some automated thing? You have some piece of hardware somewhere in some country that sends information to the wiki or something, or it's
It
all
They
done
try
by
it
people?
sometimes when
Yeah.
it comes to energy. Of course, it's possible that in within the meter there's some devices that sends out text messages, something to something, but in I don't know, 95% of our clients, they have like an objective that the child mortality should go down. And therefore, we have a project in rural areas to do some awareness raising when it comes to hygiene or sanitation, for example.
Right.
And then they do projects. They do awareness campaigns. They go to schools. They have, I don't know, some street theater, or they build sanitation things on marketplaces. And the monitoring is really sometimes that they talk to people and they do interviews, and they sometimes they do structured interviews with mobile devices, with an app, like some survey software. And then they really collect data on markets, like how many people are using the sanitation system, how many people are aware of it, are there toilets for female, are there toilets for male, and are the toilets are maintained. And they have this kind of questionnaires. And this afterwards, or we connect directly from this app to Webmo, or they aggregate it. So they say, like, I don't know, 50% of the market visitors are really using the sanitation system. And this could be in kind of an indicator. So they maybe have an indicator that the number of people who are using sanitation systems are increasing from 10% to 90%. And then they enter this data to Webmo, and then they have like an overview page, like a dashboard page, something like this, where they can see the main indicators, like how many people are visiting the markets, how many people are using sanitation systems, how many people have a sanitation system or toilet at home, how many people have access to fresh water, etc., etc. And this kind of indicators or key performance figures, these are all in Webmo, and they just fill in the data in forms and templates. And at the end, there are some calculations, some algorithm, and at the end, they can also click on a button to get a word report out of the system. And this, they use them for reporting, because normally they have to send reports to the donor once a month or each quarter. And this process from getting the data, aggregating the data, sorting the data by indicators, writing a kind of a report about the progress of this project, this is where Webmo supports them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge, having that I guess you could call it an audit trail of all of this information, and having it all in one place that will still be there
Exactly.
5 years, 10 years from now.
Exactly. Because
Um,
the common thing is that people use all this like Excel, PowerPoint, Word, and then they have just
right.
a collection of files somewhere and not a system. And
Yeah,
then
and
Webmo,
that can so easily get lost, if people leave the organization or anything else.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's sure. That's huge. I mean, yeah. How many clients do you have, by the way, if you can say, or roughly? I mean, how many people are using this Webmo system?
We sometimes support NGOs without charging, because they're doing good work, and we sometimes say, okay, just use it for 1 year, 2 years, it's okay. Maybe do some advertisement for us. So in total, we have online about 65 or 70 Webmos,
Wow.
but I think just about 50 something are paying, like a monthly fee for hosting, maintenance, support.
Okay.
And of course, we do customization. So if a project needs some special things, then we do customization, and we charge for it. And this is our main business.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, obviously, the strengths of the software as well as anyone. I mean, that the number of clients could be it could be in the hundreds or thousands, or tens of thousands, given the need for this kind of data storage, um, and how easy your setup makes it. I mean, this is obviously just a general problem with MediaWiki, and I ask about this thing a lot on this podcast. But just in terms of, I mean, is that something uh, that interests you to market it as much as possible, or um, do you see Energypedia Consult as more just a means to an end? And if people want to use the software and pay you, that's great, but you don't need to expand to the 100 times the size or something.
No, I would like to.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
the problem is still the outreach. So, but we also developed 2020 was like a fully automated Webmo that people just click on a button and they have a Webmo. So we have I'm not into this technique, but we have this kind of backend structure with Dockers, etc., where they
Oh,
just
okay.
click on a button and then all this installing MediaWiki, everything's automated. And then they have like a 30-day free trial version. And then afterwards, they can just, I think we use Stripe or something, they can just enter their credit card details. And we thought the world is waiting for this. And by end of the year, we have 1,000 new clients, but we do not have. So it's still a niche. And there are a lot of projects that said, okay, we have an Excel file with our indicators and that's enough. And we're not willing to pay a monthly fee for monitoring. So it's still a very, hopefully it's still a growing market, but it's very small still.
Yeah.
But it's still growing. So because of this Corona crisis, people were busy with other things and they were not able to do so many things on the ground. So they're not really needed to monitoring, because if you're all sitting in home office, you're not really build up solar panel plants somewhere.
Yeah.
And so like last year, we not really acquired a lot of new customers, but now it's going up again. And we also,
Yeah.
when we switched to the full automated version, we also switched from MediaWiki to Cargo, because we
Oh,
thought
from
this
Semantic MediaWiki,
structure
you
of
mean?
Cargo, from Semantic MediaWiki, yeah, from Semantic MediaWiki, we switched to Cargo. But this was a decision by my IT guys. They said the data structure is better and we have better APIs, etc., etc. And so this new Webmo we launched beginning of 2020
Oh,
together with Corona, but not we launched Corona, but it was a coincidence that
right.
this is now based on Cargo.
Cool. That's great to hear. And you're also, well, I guess goes without saying, since you mentioned forms, but you're also using page forms for the form
Yeah,
stuff, I
sure.
assume. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, how do you get most clients? Is it word of mouth, as they say? You know, people hear about other uses of it. Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So our
Marketing.
main, we tried a lot with social media marketing.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, marketing is a very tricky thing. Marketing and sales. Sure. Um, and I guess maybe things will change now that there'll be more in-person events. Maybe that's a great tool. Also, I'm not sure. But definitely this. Yeah. I mean, it's nothing better than word of mouth, I think. And
Yeah.
um, uh, yeah. Um,
And we also do, we give free webinars. So this
oh,
is
okay.
also, we do it since, I don't know, since 6 or 7 years. So we give like free webinars on introducing to monitoring, like the topic as such. Then we have webinars about IT solutions for monitoring, a very broad webinar. Then we have a webinar with using Excel for monitoring. This is still I have this webinar tomorrow and we have like close to 300 registrations.
Oh,
But in this webinar and all of these webinars, of course, at the end, I show Webmo. And
I see.
next
Okay.
Thursday, we have a Webmo webinar. And through these webinars, we got a lot of people and they're interested and they see our competence, that we are experts in IT and for monitoring. And we have a lot of people clicking on the free trial button, but not a lot of people really then enter their payment details.
Yeah. Okay. Wait, can you hear me? Froze. Ah.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. I heard all of what you said, but now the video is frozen for a second. Okay, now it's fine. Um, yeah, so that's interesting. You basically explain to people how to use Excel better, but then at the end you say, well, you shouldn't really be using Excel, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, is your customer base mostly NGOs or entirely NGOs, or are you moving it all into the corporate world or the government worlds, that kind of thing?
Can you repeat the last question? I
Yeah,
was a bit
sorry.
interrupted.
Yeah. How is this now? Can you hear me? I'm gonna have to do a lot of
Yeah,
cutting
perfect.
on the video. Okay. Um, is your customer base mostly NGOs or entirely NGOs, or are you moving it all into the corporate world or the government world?
Yeah, we have 50-50 government world. So like all the organization I was working for before was also government owned, and NGOs, but not really business or something. So we have NGOs, this like fair trade or classical NGOs, and we have this government owned project, this government development corporation. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
these smaller NGOs based in Africa, it's because we charge for the cheapest version of Webmo, we charge 99 euros a month. And even this is for an African NGO a lot of money. This is like a monthly salary. So
Okay.
we are still thinking of going down with the price and maybe get more people when we only charge 29 euros. But of course, if we charge 29 euros a month and we have to pay for the infrastructure and for the IT guys here in Germany, you have to sell a lot of Webmos. And yeah, I'm not quite sure how big the market is. If there are 100,000 of projects out there who could use Webmo, or maybe just some thousands, I don't know.
Well, it seems to me, even the biggest corporations or just any corporation would have that need for monitoring, quote unquote, whatever exactly that means. You know, it's not necessarily monitoring the status of some humanitarian project. Um, yeah, I mean, just you know, once you start getting into just the realm of data management and all of that, I mean. It starts to become endless, the kinds of things you can use this kind of software for. But of course, it's not obvious to people who might benefit from using the software that it's something that it can apply to them as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, how much of so how much of it is money that you get from hosting, and how much of it is actual quote unquote consulting, where people have this set up and then they say, oh, we want these changes to the data structure, we want this additional functionality, additional forms and all of that, and then you have to actually, you know, do true consulting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like 80-20. So 80% is really consulting and customizing. And
Yeah. Okay.
sometimes we also get contracts besides IT contracts. So we also just consultants for M&E, and sometimes also for energy. So some of my colleagues, they also do studies. They do field studies and something like this. So I would say it's like 20-30% just development corporation consultancy, like energy or M&E consultancy. 50% of all the turnover is IT consultancy, customizing webmos, and another 20% are these hosting things we make. But for hosting, I have freelancers that take care about the servers, and they get more or less the money we get for the hosting. So it's like not everything, but they get more than 50%.
Yeah.
So this
Okay.
is the deal with them.
Okay, I get it. So it's sort of like a company within the company within the within the company that does the hosting. Sure, yeah. No, yeah, that makes perfect sense. That true hands-on consulting is where the real uh revenue is. And I mean, I guess you could argue there's a case for making the hosting part free entirely and using that as a quote unquote loss leader, as they say in the business world, to bring people in. But you know, that's a business
Mm.
decision. And I'm hardly a business expert as far as what the best course of action is. Um, yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing I think
Yeah,
about
this is
too.
also a big discussion we have also internally.
Yeah. Um,
Sometimes we have discussion internally if we should give out Webmo for free, and then the people needs consultancy, needs trainings, etc. But I don't know if to give it out for free because most of the clients they have the money to pay for it. So we take the money, but we also give it for free to smaller NGOs.
Right, right. Yeah, that's another option. Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, sure. A lot of possibilities there. Um, uh, yeah, cool. Uh, yeah, okay. Do you is Webmo still evolving? I mean, are you still modifying the data structures and all that? And does the consulting feed into that? Like you see that clients, a bunch of clients need this additional functionality or this new field in a template or something, so you go
Yeah,
and change the original.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we deploy every quarter some new features
Oh,
because
okay.
there may be some feedback of clients and they have maybe nice ideas of having a calendar showing all the monitoring events, so the next data collection date or deadline of some indicators. But it was years ago. Then we deployed this kind of monitoring calendar to all of our clients. That we said, okay, click here, and you have a nice calendar. You see all the events, upcoming events when it comes to monitoring, or just some small feedback that they would need a field for implementing partner organization, strategic partner organization, and political partner organization. And when we include some new fields, and then we deploy it to all, and we do it like every quarter. We deploy some new features.
Yeah. That's really cool. I mean, I think that's one of the big strengths of MediaWiki and this whole the whole functionality around it is it lets people, really become subject matter experts, or people who already were subject matter experts, but really, get it, become aware of all the details without having to, reinvent the wheel and create their own full software application for it, and just focus on, the important things, the data and all of that. Um, uh, yeah, fantastic. By the way, on that note, do you consider yourself an energy guy who happens to do IT, or an IT guy now who happens to come from the energy sector, or something in between?
No, I'm a geographer, and I had a minor subject IT science at university, so I know a bit of IT, but I cannot really do it. So I'm totally lost when it comes to IT. Not totally lost, but I'm more the translator between these two worlds. So people coming to me with some requirements, and I explain them what is feasible and what is not feasible, and then I explain my IT guys what they need to do, that at the end the customer is satisfied.
Yeah.
Because
Uh,
these development cooperation world, they have their own language and their own wordings, and this M&E world is a bit different. So I'm more between the worlds. I'm a translating facilitator.
yeah, sure, sure. That makes sense. I guess I could have also said you could be a business person who's, in both worlds, but yeah, sure. Yeah, a little of everything. That's interesting that you're a geographer. There was a guy a few episodes ago on this podcast, Lars Dalgo, who's also got his start as a geographer, and now does MediaWiki work within the government. Uh, yeah, do you think being a geographer gives you some insight as to the need for structured data and uh, you know uh, uh, bringing different data sets together and all of that?
Yes, because also at university we worked a lot with these geographic information systems, and then it's really about getting sometimes data from the field about, I don't know, some social science things, and then to get it structured to be shown in the map, etc., etc. So you need to think about data and how to structure it and how to show things in a map and with what kind of graphs and color codes, etc. You can, yeah, make it appeal that people understands what you want to say with this thematic map, for example. And this was really fun at university. There was also statistical science we had a lot, and bringing together these statistical geo information systems And now with Webmo, where people sometimes they also like this mapping feature. So we include
Yeah,
these
okay.
OpenStreetMaps to Webmo, and then they just like to see that they have a map with all the hydropower plants, and then they can just click on it, and then this template opens, and they see some information about the hydropower plant, and this is really what they like.
Yeah. Cool. I sometimes ask this. You may not. You don't necessarily need to have a a canned answer for it, but is there anything you would like to see added to MediaWiki? Any missing features or current weaknesses in software that you see?
Um, there, I'm maybe not the big expert, but what my IT guys sometimes say is that um, to have just a database where the data is stored in a database, and in MediaWiki the data is also stored on pages, and this kind of duplication. So sometimes we also had this bug that now using Cargo, we had sometimes in some tables redundancies because some piece of information was shown 2 times, or
Well,
we had
okay.
a bug. We had some bugs that because of I don't know, some parser functions are checking something, and if they find it on the page and differently in the database tables, they return an error, and then they're just a bit mad about this. But
Okay.
I'm
Well,
not
that's just
so much into
that's
it,
just a
what it
bug.
means.
That's I'll have to.
Okay.
Maybe we can talk about that separately. But well, yeah. Do you know about the external data extension? That might tie into the first thing you talked about, which is having the data set outside of the wiki.
Um, yeah, but I don't know if it's the same extension, but in Energypedia, for example, we use some extensions where we get data from, I think it's called statistic.worldbank.org, and we get all this data, and then in this template, we use some, I don't know, extensions to show all this external data on our page.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same extension.
Okay. Yeah. Could be. So yeah. So what's the issue there? I mean, there shouldn't be data redundancy at that point. Not to put you on the spot or anything.
When we have country portals where we have some information about the country, we just pull it from other databases, from World Bank or from other statistic databases, where we just have some some basic information about the country, like the size, the number of population, etc., etc. This is nothing we maintain in our wiki.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I just meant what's the weakness in that whole setup sorry, well,
I
this is
don't know.
already kind of getting into the details, but
Yeah, no, this I don't know. This is I'm not IT guy enough to explain it.
yeah. Okay. But yeah, no, that's really cool that you are. Yeah, we didn't talk about that before, but that's really cool that you are pulling in this outside, I guess, publicly and available information. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's all my questions. But you have a very impressive setup, and I hope more people find out about it. Hopefully, this podcast will help more people find out about it too. Um, uh, but yeah, the Energypedia you can find at energypedia.info, and Energypedia Consult is I believe energypedia-consult.com. Um, and definitely anyone who's involved in the energy world or the humanitarian world, or I guess maybe just the data monitoring world, should check out those. Um, yeah, that was very informative. I've seen your name for a long time, and I think this is the first time we've talked. So that was really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it was great talking to you, Robert, and thank you for coming on the program.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.